Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Wednesday, the 28th day of January. Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. I hope you're all safe and healthy today, safe, healthy, and warm. And that your family also safe, healthy, and warm. And that the needs of you and your family in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as health are being met today. Blessing upon those that work in the area of health, along with first responders every day doing their best to save lives. Those also that pick up garbage, keep our places clean, and those that make deliveries for our convenience. Double blessings on the men and women that are trying to help rescue, deliver, and recover teenagers and children, victims of child molestation and pedophilia. People that are victims of pornography, child pornography, human trafficking, sex slavery, prostitution, child prostitution. Double curses on the perpetrators, the profiteers, and the perverts that create the demands that cause these evil industries to exist. Finally, double blessings on the homeless. More than 700,000 men, women, children, families, senior citizens, military veterans, with the numbers growing, and millions around the world in similar or worse conditions. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. There was a basketball game last night at Madison Square Garden. The New York Knicks defeated the Sacramento Kings 103-87. There's a few things we got to go into today, but let's start with the game. What I loved best about this game, there was a lot of things that you could talk about, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to bring this up and bring that up as if you're anyway. DeRozan, which he is one of the greatest mid-range shooters in the history of the NBA. He gets in the paint. You can't stop him almost from getting in the paint. There's other weaknesses to his game, but in terms of that particular area and the footwork that it takes to get to his spots, he's one of the best all time at doing it. And so it's very difficult to keep him out the paint. And when he gets in the paint and he starts hitting in the paint, he can even extend a little bit outside. So generally, he's definitely in the paint area. Foul line down around the basket. Foul line in terms of footage. Foul line and around the basket. So he was, and so it's a key when you're playing any team he's on, to guard him in the paint. Now, last night, he was 1 of 7 from 3, because he's not a three-point shooter, but he took 26 shots. So he took 7 of his 26 shots from 3. He missed 6 of them. But he took 19 of those shots in the paint, and he was 13 of 19 there. He scored 34 points. He also is an excellent free throw shooter because he gets fouled a lot. So what happened in the first half of the game, and if you look at the overall game, like if you look at the team stat overall, the Knicks were defeated in the paint by Sacramento 42-34. That was DeRozan, okay? Because once any player gets their feet in the paint in the NBA, it's usually a wrap. Now, I know NBA now is a big three-point shooting team, but even the three-point shot is set up by getting, as Mike Brown is always talking about, getting 2 feet in the paint. So what I liked about this game most of all was DeRozan was getting in the paint in the first half. Very difficult. But then in the second half, you can see the Knicks made a concerted effort to keep him out. Like, in other words, somebody would ask, well, how come they didn't do it in the first half? In the first half, they sure had a strategy. But again, this is one of the greatest mid-range shooters in the history of the game. So he is going to get in the paint. It's not going to be easy to stop him. Once, though, it was figured out that he was the hot hand. See, against the Knicks, we know, especially during the losing streak, there was always a hot hand that they had to find. And they wouldn't find the hot hand. They wouldn't know where that person was on the court, and that person would kill us. Well, Kings made it easy. We already knew DeRozan was going to be tough, and he was the hot hand. So with DeRozan, you have to now make a concerted effort, double down your effort to focus on him. So in the second half, see, now Landry Shamet only scored 2 points, and Deuce did not shoot the ball well. But when they were on the floor together, you can see the battle. And then Brunson was in there too. They were making a concern. It almost looked like a zone at the top, a 3-2 zone, because they would kind of fade toward DeRozan and make sure he did not get in the paint. And that is DeRozan, because he was hot, he still hit some tough shots. But they, as in the losing streak, they would let that discourage them not last night. They said, no, we're going to keep going at you. And they did. And so DeRozan ended up being the hot hand. He scored 34, but only Sabonis and Russell Westbrook scored double figures. Because, see, they were going to the hot hand. And the Knicks shut them down. And that fight especially Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet was guarding DeRozan one-on-one a lot. And he was battling. Now, DeRozan, again, was hitting shots from his spots. It's almost a player like that offensively. See, the thing with DeRozan is defensively. He was minus 17. So, defense is not his strong suit. And this is the whole problem with the whole Kings situation. I don't understand. All these years, they never put a defensive team on the floor. Always focus on offense. And that's why they never go nowhere. But with DeRozan, he's not a big defender. But offensively, he going to get his. So if you can make him fight, and that's where him and Levine, that was the rationale. Because you got DeRozan putting the pressure on the paint, and then you got Levine where you get him the ball on the outside, the three-point line. He has an option. He's very athletic, gets to the basket, can shoot the three. And so that's offensively. Of course, that was the focus. And this is why I keep telling Knicks fans, stop focusing on offense. It's defense that wins the chip. See, teams that get the combination of a Levine and DeRozan, they're not looking at defense. They're looking at offense. Now, that might sell tickets. That might generate excitement, but it ain't winning you no chip. See, so there was no Levine last night. So now it's on DeRozan. DeRozan, Sabonis. Westbrook was even trying to shoot threes. Well, we want him shooting all night. He was 2 of 9. He's not a three-point shooter, okay? We want him shooting. So that was no problem. No problem at all. So that's why the Knicks, that was a low-scoring game. Notice the Knicks only scored 103. Last night, they weren't shooting the ball well. Last night, they weren't shooting the ball well. I mean, Towns was 5 of 15, and that's fine. Again, don't whine about Towns. I'm tired of y'all whining about Karl-Anthony Towns. Y'all need to chill on that. I'm going to have to add him to the do not speak on list with Mitch Robin, Deuce, and Tibbs, because some of y'all be tripping too much. He had the ball in his hands. Yes, he shot the ball 15 times, only hit 5. He was 3-8 from 3, but the pressure he puts on the defense is worth all that, okay? So Karl-Anthony Towns didn't shoot the ball well. Deuce didn't shoot the ball well, 4 of 11, okay? Again, Josh Hart didn't shoot the ball well. Not only that, Josh Hart had daggone 4 turnovers. OG, our boy, 7 turnovers. You're not going to get that from every night, but that's what happened last night. So that's why they only scored 103 points. But they only gave up 87 because they was all on the Kings' ass. That's what you want. Okay, that's what you want. That's how games like that are won. Okay, 87. How many times in the NBA do you get a team scoring less than 90 points? That's a highlight right there. That's a highlight right there. So that's what I like the best. Now, as I mentioned, OG 7 turnovers, Josh 4 turnovers, and a lot of them were silly turnovers. I mean, just straight silly turnovers, offensive fouls, silly turnovers. Okay, so that's why that was so bad. But Brunson played the game the way you want Brunson to play. He took 17 shots. So check it out. Brunson takes 17 shots. Deuce gets 11 shots. McCall gets 13 shots. Karl-Anthony Towns gets 15 shots. That's the distribution you want. Now, they only had last night a total of 24 assists. But that was more a function of the high turnovers, because at least I would say 6 of those turnovers could have been baskets if they were on their game. But okay, so that's that. So that was high turnovers and just bad shooting, right, from your main guys. But again, the defense carried the day. Now, they got outscored in the paint, but when they tightened up in the second half on that paint, that was the end of that. That faucet was turned off. So this was good for the Knicks last night. Now, last night, what I noticed, little nuancey thing, but I watched these things. Aside from watching how many 3-stop sequences they got, which they got a lot last night, I'm watching how they shoot the ball. So Deuce, for example, most of his misses, in fact, all of his misses were too strong. What does that tell you? I mean, too strong. So in other words, he's hitting the back rim hard, right? Why? because he's got his legs are fresh, right? He's got to adjust, his legs are fresh. Whereas Brunson's were all short. He was missing short, which tells you his legs were tired. Now, does that mean they're going to be tired tonight? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. You would think probably it could be because it's second night for back-to-back. But actually, I'm going to be crazy here, and I'm going to tell you, I think Brunson's going to come out with some fire tonight. I think he will. So I'm liking that possibility. I know Deuce is. So this is the thing. And again, let's talk about the trade situation. Now, Shams brought out some stuff. Now you got to pay attention. When it's, when it was, if it's just Ian is definitely legit. And if it was Woj, who doesn't exist anymore in this type of situation, you pay attention. But when you get 2 out of the 3, you really got to pay attention. So Shams is saying Giannis wants out of Milwaukee. Giannis wants out. Okay. Giannis is going to leave Milwaukee. Question is, he going to leave now or he going to leave in the summer? Apparently, he loses the eligibility for his $75 million extension if he leaves in the summer. If he leaves now before the deadline, he's still eligible for that huge extension. $275 million. So he's going to leave now. And this is the thing. Giannis has always been in the NBA a good guy. Type of guy you want as the face of the league. Okay, a guy that's liked, a guy that works hard at his craft, brings his 100% effort every single night, and has brought you a chip. So this is a guy that the league wants as a face. These type of guys don't like to be the bad guy. They don't want to look bad. But see, this has got to a critical mass situation so that you've been seeing Giannis say, for example, publicly, I'm not going nowhere. I'm not wanting to be traded. I want to stay in Milwaukee. But apparently, now that Shams is bringing this information, we got to consider, maybe all that was BS, and Giannis does want out. Now, where does that leave the Knicks? This is the problem. And this is why I don't speak often, because most people were dealing in fantasy rather than fit. Aside from the game fit, let's talk about Jrue Holiday. Yes, Giannis would want to play with Jrue Holiday. I think anybody that has tasted a chip wants to play with Jrue Holiday because he's a legit chip piece, having won 2, one in Milwaukee and one in Boston. One of the biggest mistakes Milwaukee made was letting him go. I can understand how Boston let him go because Boston's not trying to pay all them taxes. They got the chip, they won't pay them taxes, and they still got Tatum and Brown. But Milwaukee shouldn't let him go and go get Dame Dollar. That was a bad move, and it cost them. Giannis noticed this. So Giannis wants to play with Homeboy, but the problem is Homeboy is $33 million. So if you're the Knicks, you got to sell Mikal Bridges. You got to sell Josh Hart to get this done. And if you want Giannis, you got to sell Karl Anthony Towns. So let me explain what the real problem, not the fantasy problem, what the real problem is with this. The Knicks had this team in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They hire Mike Brown, taking a huge risk on firing a coach that had you in the ECF, a coach you built your roster around his thumbprint, and you go with a new guy. That's big risk right there. What's the risk? It could fall. It could all flop. Your new guy could not teach defense. Your new guy could be soft. Your new guy may not be able to navigate through the trials and tribulations of an 82-game season. Your new guy may cause you to come up short. That's the risk. See, when you get to the ECF with a team like the Knicks got, the expectation, as it should be, is finals next time, baby. So now, that was a risk. The team was built around Tibbs. The team was put together for a chip. As I mentioned, in the summer of 2024, when they got Cat, there was a 4-year window for the chip with this team. You spend 5 years, literally 5 seasons, getting this team to where this team is. Drafting, trading, picking up on free agency. You spend 5 years building this team. In spite of the fantasy world, you don't just throw that away. Because when you start messing, you already mess with the coach. You start messing with the pieces. I don't care who it is. It could be Prime Jordan. You could be messed up. Okay? So, you can't just move Bridges or OG and don't think because you're getting Giannis and Giroux it's not going to affect you. You need to do this type of move off season. Not only that, Giannis might want Giroux. Got you. But who gonna take on $33 million? Who gonna break up their team? This is classic. You do not look at what the Nets did again with Kyrie, right? And Durant and Harden. They broke up their coach, they broke up their team, and where did they go? Nowhere. Look at what Phoenix did. They broke up their coach, they broke up their team. Where did they go? Nowhere. Okay? The big three game is over. You can't just throw three players and throw the basketball out there and say run. The league is parity driven right now. So what I'm saying is Giannis might want New York. But for New York to roll out, see, to get Giannis, Towns got to go. There's no way you're going to have $60 million Towns and $60 million Giannis. You gotta move Towns. You need 3 teams to do that. Do you realize, most people don't because they on clickbait in NBA 2K where they can click stuff. 3-team trades are very difficult to do. Very difficult to do. Okay, in the NBA, because everybody wants something. See, in Knicks Nation, everybody thinks only in terms of how it benefits Madison Square Garden. But no, you got to bring ass to get ass. This is the rule. This is the way it is. You got to know the rules. So every team wants something, and every team wants to be satisfied. And you got to satisfy at least 3. And they're going to try to help you get Giannis? This is difficult. Very difficult, y'all. The better move, I'm saying, is to tweak the bench. So all we've been talking about until now is Alvarado, right? Sadiq, right? Sohan, right? And then, of course, Precious, right? With Keon Ellis on the outside, too. Why is that? Them are bench tweakers. Those are, whatever you're trying to do, what you're mainly trying to do is strengthen your bench, because in the league, the champions all got solid starting 5s, but really, they also got bench that could kick butt, right? I talked about 30 points a game off the bench. So you got to have bench. So that's what the Knicks are focused on right now. But the noise is Giannis, because Giannis is definitely one of the top 3 players on the planet. Top 3 players, not just shooters, not just players. Top 3 players on the planet. Giannis Antetokounmpo. So when he becomes available, the Don is going to look. But he's got to make a decision. So are you willing, Don, to send your OG Anunoby, defensive stopper, to Portland and get Jrue Holiday and then have him have to fit in? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like it. Holiday's older. OG's in his prime. You just resign OG. He's the piece you wanted. I'm not doing it. And if you don't do that, then you got to move Towns. You got to move Towns. This is not easy. There's only a couple of teams that would take a Towns. And it's not just because of the fit, it's the money in terms of the fit. Not just fit as a player, but it's the money. Charlotte would do it because Charlotte got the money. They can move a couple of pieces, and they're already playing better now. Charlotte recently on the DL has been playing really good. So they could do it, but you need another team to make this work. So you got Giannis going to New York, Towns going to Charlotte. Somebody's got to send out some money somewhere and take on some money. And then there's draft picks, and you got to talk about draft picks. I don't see it happening. I know Giannis wants New York. He said it. He basically said, he said it last year. He said it. But I don't see it happening. You might try to do it in the summer, but then Giannis not getting his $275 million extension. I do see Miami, though. Watch Pat Riley. I do see Miami. Miami got enough pieces, send back. And Pat Riley's a master at getting these type of things done. Watch Miami. Yeah, watch Miami. I wouldn't be surprised if Miami got this done. It's like that, and that's the way it is. That's what I'm saying. So, or or there's other teams, Atlanta, Miami. Nobody like a Boston or New York. Too much money. Teams that are way over the cap. Too much money. But Atlanta, that got the pieces. You can add up the money. Miami got the pieces. Can add up the money. Orlando. There's some guys out there. That's all I'm saying. Don't be surprised. And I don't want to hear the Knicks shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'm trying to tell you before it happens so you don't start tripping and need that might all. So I don't think this is going to happen. The Knicks don't got the right fit in terms of pieces right now. And I'm not breaking up this team. It took me 5 years to get in place for some fantasy. No. So, yeah, that's it. It's like what I tell my children. I tell my children when they was getting to the age where they was like thinking about going on their own, I would say to my children, one of the principles you want to do, right, is you want to save, legitimately save $10,000. They would say, why, Daddy? Why 10,000? Because I would say, especially to one of my children, but I would say, once you have sweat to save $10,000, I don't care if you did it while living in our house or on your own or when you did it, but you saved, legitimately saved over the course of a year, $10,000. You ain't going to give that money up real quick because of how hard it took you to save it, see? It took you sweat equity to put 10 grand away. Once you did that, all of a sudden, let's say there's some thing, object, that will cost you the 10. I'll give you like my grandson. My grandson took that advice. Smart young boy. I call him the hustler. And anyway, he did it. He did it when he was like 18. Then he did it again when he was 19. Then he did it again when he was 20. So his father, my son, was pushing him, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. And I was like, why? And he came to me. Now, he wants to obey his father, and I can't go against him. That's his son. But he said, Grandpa, what should I do? And I said, man, I think you should hang on to that money right now. And then he said, I tell you, Grandpa, I don't want to be giving up my money for no house right now. I said, you should really invest in some mutual funds. He agreed, but he did what his daddy wanted him to do anyway. And it took him 2 years to get back into saving because that house was costing him so much, But that's the principle. Once you put sweat equity into something, you don't just turn around. It's not your nature. Once you work so hard to get it to the point where you wanted it, you're not going to just give it up. The Knicks worked hard to get this team. Just because of some ex-fantasy teenager, they're not going to throw that away. You see what I'm saying? So I don't see them making this Giannis move, but I do see a Miami. I can see that. Or in Orlando, or in Atlanta. Problem with all of them is they're in our conference. I'd like to get this fool in the Western Conference. I don't know who in the West could do it or would do it. I don't know. But I'd like to get this fool out of the Eastern Conference if I could. But that's what we're dealing with. As far as Alvarado, real quick, I half understand it. I was trying my best to figure out why the Knicks would want this guy. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying he wouldn't fit in the culture, all that. But what I'm saying is we got Deuce, McCall, Brunson. We got Shamet. We also got Jordan Clarkson. And then I was looking at Clarkson's numbers. I just don't get it. I don't know what Mike is. I don't understand it. I'm looking at Clarkson, okay? His plus minus overall, right? He's -6. So when he's on the floor, it's generally the Knicks are 6 points below their opponent when he's on the floor, okay? 6 points below. All right, so I understand it like that, but that's not the whole story. The 5-man combinations that Clarkson's been involved with, he's played most minutes, almost 57 minutes with OG, Bridges, Kolick, and Towns. And he's +8. In the 4-man combinations he played 115 minutes with Towns, Kolick, and Bridges. He's +9. In the 3-man combinations, Bridges, Clarkson, Towns, they played 307 minutes together. They're +2. Okay, not dominant, but they're not negative. And then all of a sudden in the 2-man combination, Bridges and Clarkson ball. They are +4. Okay? Bridges and Clarkson +4. Bridges and McBride +4. Bridges and Clarkson and McBride +4. Clarkson and Anunoby +4. Clarkson and Kolick +4. Clarkson and Hoop Porty +15. I don't know what the problem is. I really don't. So I don't get it. I hope Mike is not screwing us here, inadvertently, I'm saying. Because I don't know West 4th Street is balling. You got to put him out there with the right combinations, but he's balling. So I don't understand. And you could see it on his face. He's getting discouraged. I don't think Mike Brown should do a Tom Thibodeau and completely ignore this cat if you want him. Now, if they're going to trade him, okay, I kind of get it. It would hurt him because he really put all his heart into MSG. He wants this chip. But, all right, if that's what you want to do, that's where I'm looking at. Okay, if that's what you want to do. But Alvarado, so then you'd have Brunson, Deuce, and Alvarado. That's your guard. Kohler could be out. I don't like that either, and I know some of y'all don't, but it is what it is. No more West 4th Street. And then you'd have your wings, McCall, OG, Josh, right? And then Deuce does play the wing. I know short as he is, but he does play the wing. He guards wings and he plays wing. Okay, that's what they're doing. I can see it. Because then they're going to kind of go Philly light. What I mean by that? Philly is strong on the guard spot. Grimes and McCain coming off the bench. Edgecombe and Maxey starting. They strong on the guard spot. So they go strong on the guards. They still got Embiid. They still got PG-13, but they are not as dependent on them because they really focus on their guards. The Knicks would be Philly light. You already got Deuce playing heavy minutes. You got Brunson doing Brunson, right? And then you're going to have Alvarado also. Who's going to come off the bench and be a little terror, Tasmanian devil defensively. So I can see why they would do that. Although I still favor a wing like Bay or Precious or Sohan because I feel like they can spell OG, McCall, and Josh. But that's just me. We'll see what the Knicks do. But we're going to see soon. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think this Giannis thing is happening in New York. I'm thinking they're probably going to bite on Miami. With a third team involved, Pat Riley does these things. It's a Pat Riley situation. We'll see. If he does go to Miami, it's going to be hell to pay. Anyway, let's get this dub tonight. We playing Toronto. We got to buckle down. We got to buckle down. Second night of back-to-back. Forget that. We got to get this done. Let's enjoy this game. Let's root for our squad. Shalom.